Alrighty. Starting with Pythagorean Theorem, we will be going between the book and this new packet, so I'd make sure you put this packet in your book. If you have not grabbed this packet yet, make sure you get it from the cart underneath the TV. So we'll be going through this. We took some notes on it yesterday, so some of it will be review. Some of it will be doing the math to solve all the problems. So you should have your name up here. The date really doesn't matter. It'd be 4/21 to, I don't know, 4... maybe 4/26, 4/27, somewhere in there. I really don't know how long we'll be using this. And then whatever class period you have. That way, if it gets lost, it can be found. So parts of a right triangle, we went over this in yesterday's video. A right triangle, the two sides adjacent the right angle. Here's my right angle. Adjacent means they have a connecting point, are known as the legs, or A and B. Remember, the order of A and B doesn't matter. You can have AB, you can have BA. That part does not matter. The side opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. Sorry. And it's labeled with C. Opposite means across from. The hypotenuse is always the longest side of the right triangle. Pythagorean theorem tells us how the side lengths of right triangles are related. How the side lengths of a right triangle are related. In any right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse, remember that means it would be c squared, is equal to the sum of the squares of the other sides. The relationship can be represented by the equation a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Sometimes you will have c and you'll have one of your legs and you'll be missing the other, so you have to be able to solve the equation. And we've been working with solving equations all year long, on and off, throughout different parts of every unit. Label A, B, and C on each of the figures below. Each of the right triangles below. Well, A and B are always adjacent or next to your right triangle or your right angle. And the order of your A, B does not matter. So on this one, we can have AB. On this one, we might have BA. This one, maybe we'll have BA again and AB. The order of your legs does not matter. You have an A, you have a B. Either way works. Your hypotenuse is always across from or opposite of your angle. So we would have C, 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 C. So remember those, it does not matter what order you put them in. For A and B, C is the only one that really matters because it must be the opposite of your right angle. Finding side lengths of right triangles. So we should know that we need to label A. I should try and keep this in the same color. A, B, and C. Substitute the known values into Pythagorean Theorem. It's a hard word to say. And then solve for your missing variables. So here we have maybe A and B. So we have 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. And we don't know what c is yet. If you don't know your squares, get out your paper from the other day that you're supposed to fill in. And it will help you. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. And we still don't know what c is. 9 plus 16 is 25. Now we're at the very last part of solving the equation. We need c by itself. So we need to get rid of this square. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. And the square root of 25 is 5. Find the missing side length of each right triangle. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. Alrighty. So first we need a label. And I'm just going to keep it in. We have A, we have B, we are missing C. So we have 24 squared plus 7 squared equals C squared. I don't know what 24 squared is off the top of my head. 24 times 24 is 576. 7 squared is 49. And that is equal to C squared. 576 plus 49. If you don't have a calculator, get one. Is 625. The opposite of squaring would be to square root. Should just get a real calculator. Just a minute. All right, if you don't have a calculator, go get one. I just went and got one. I would make sure it's this calculator. If you have your own and it's not this one, I would go get this one from the front wall. All right, so make sure it's cleared out. To do a square root, you do the second key. And then you do this key right here, has a little square root symbol, and then your number. The square root of 625 is 25. So 25 centimeters is C. Next, 7 and 21, we are missing C. Maybe we have A and B again. So 7 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. 7 squared is 49. 12 squared is 144. Equals C squared. These are some that you should probably, if you don't know them yet, you should probably practice on remembering squares up until probably 15. 49 plus 144. Let's see, 144 plus 49. 193 is equal to C squared. That is not a perfect square or a square root. So let's see. So second key, 193. We're rounding it to the nearest tenth. So that means our 8 would be becoming 9 because this 9 makes us bump up 1. So 13.9 feet equals C. On the back, I'll probably just go through all of these with you. Make sure you're following along and answering the questions you need to answer. So this one, now we have a C. We have a C. We have a C. The way my brain works is I want my variable first. So I'm going to label all my missing ones A. You can do it. You can label them B. So my equations will now be A squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. So now I have A squared plus 25 equals 169. Did my squares. We need to get our variable by itself. To get that by itself, you have to do the opposite of adding. So we're going to subtract 25 from each side. So we now have A squared equals 144. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. And if you have your sheet out, you see that 144 is on there. So that means A is equal to 12. 5. Again, we're missing A, so we're going to have A squared plus 6 squared equals 10 squared. A squared we don't know. 6 squared is 36. 10 squared is 100. So now we can do our subtraction, getting A by itself. So we have A squared equals 100 minus 36 is 64. The opposite of squaring would be to square root it. What does A equal? Another one. Number 6. Same thing. A squared plus 16 squared equals 24 squared. 16 times 16, 256. So we have A squared plus 256. And then we have 24 squared, 576. I think we knew that one from the other side. We need A by itself, so we're going to subtract our 256 from both sides. We get A is equal to 320. The opposite of squaring would be to square root it. And we get A equals, do the math. A lot more practice. We have this and a whole nother page front and back. So let's see what we get through. A rectangular pool at Andy's gym measures 25 meters by 50 meters. How many meters would Andy need to swim in order to swim diagonally across the pool? We have A, we have B. So we have 25 squared plus 50 squared equals C squared. 25 squared, 625, 50 squared, 2500. That one I probably should have known. Equals C squared. Add them up. 3125 equals C squared. The opposite of squaring would be to square root. And what does C equal? Number 8. A pole vaulter rests a 17-foot pole against a wall. If the top of the pole hits the wall at 14 feet above the ground, how far from the wall is the pole? Okay, so here is my pole. It is 17 feet. It's against a wall. That is 14 feet. What is this missing measurement? We're going to label this one A. So I have A squared plus 14 squared equals 17 squared. 14 squared is 196. Don't know the best spot to put it. It's 196. A squared plus 196 equals 17 squared is 289. If we subtract them because we need to get A by itself, we get 93. In order to find what the length of A is, we need to square root. And what does A equal? Use the diagram to the right to answer questions A and B. If the area of square 2 is 64 units squared, and the area of square 3 is 36, find the side length of square 1. Okay, so we're going to have 64 plus 36, because that's this number squared and this number squared, A and B, equals C squared. We don't know what it is. 36 and 64 is 100. The opposite of squaring would be to square root it. So what is the side length of square 1? What does C equal? If the area of square 1 is 25, and the area of square 2 is 16, what is the perimeter of 3? Oh, this one I missed. The area and the side length. This is side length. This is 100, the area. Okay, sorry. So the area of C is 25. 3 we don't know. So we have B squared plus 16 equals 25. Subtract these to get B by itself. B squared equals 9. Rooting them, that means B, the side length is 3. So we have 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So perimeter equals 12. The squares below form a model for Pythagorean Theorem. Malachi has solved and found the area of the center square to be 527 square units. Describe his error and find the correct answer. So he is saying this is 527. We'll put a question mark. Okay, so the two small ones, we know the perimeter. So something times 4 is 28, because perimeter, you add all sides or multiply by 4 for a square. So that means this side length is 7. 7, 7, 7. 96. Let's see. 96 divided by 4. That means these are all 24. So we have Malachi put 24 in the spot for the hypotenuse, spot for C, when it should have been there. So it should be 7 squared plus 24 squared equals C squared. So 49 plus 576 equals C squared. When we add those, 576 plus 49, 625. So the area is 625. So his error was he put 24 in the slot for C. And the side length for C would then be 25. On to the next page. This one, it says it's Unit 1 Homework 1 at the top. We're still doing it today in class. You can work on this and mute the video and just do it by yourself. You can listen to the video as you're working through it. You will need to have the video 100% completed and watched. This will just be for those that have more help, and I will just kind of help set up the problems, and then you will answer them. So today's date, you should already have your name because it should be stapled, but this was completed on 4/21. Which equation could be used to find the missing side length of the right triangle? we are missing C. Remember our formula for Pythagorean theorem? I'm going to write it up top. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So the one that shows it as A squared plus B squared equals C squared is D. Which of the following statements is not a true statement? The legs of the triangles are on the sides adjacent the right angle. That's true. The hypotenuse is directly across from the right angle. That's also true. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used on right triangles. That's true. The hypotenuse is always the shortest side. That one is not true. This is where you guys are going to have a lot of practice. So you need to know your formula. We'll write it out, and then you'll work each of them out. So we are missing C. So we are going to have 8 squared plus 15 squared equals C squared. And then you're going to put your answer here, rounding it to the nearest tenth. That's what the directions say. Sometimes it will be exact answer, and that's when you leave it as the square root of a number. So you need to, I'll go through this one with you guys. 8 squared is 64. 15 squared is, let's double check. I was going to say 225 equals C squared. When we add up our legs, we get 289 equals C squared. The opposite of squaring is to square root. So it would be 17. 4 is where we're missing a leg. I'm going to say we're missing A just because. So that means we'd have A squared plus 10 squared equals 26 squared. So A squared plus 10 squared is 100. 26 squared is 676. To get A by itself, we're going to subtract what we have. Getting A squared equals 576. And we've seen that number a couple times. I think it was 24. Yep. Remember, if you need to rewatch a part, rewatch it. So this one we're missing C. You're missing A or B, whatever one you want this one to be. You're missing C, and then you're missing C again. So you should be solving each one of these problems. Give yourself some time because the video is going to stop, and ask for the answers to these 3. If you get stuck on which problem to look at, if you're missing C, which is these 3, look at problem 3, and then 6 and 4 are very similar. On the back of this, we have another if the area is. So if the area of square 1 is 250 square units. Well, 1 is C. So I'm going to write this. C is equal to 250 square units. And the area of 3 is equal to 120 units squared. So it means it's already been squared. What is the area of square 2? Remember, area is your side length squared. So once we get to here, it's going to have it. So we need A squared by itself. So I'm going to subtract 120. Subtract 120, giving me A squared is equal to 130 units squared. And that is the answer, because if you square root this, it's only going to give you the side length. Number 10. Denise is using a ladder to clean the outside of her second-story window. The ladder she's using is 24 feet long and puts the base 3 feet away from the house to avoid the flower garden. How high up the side of her house will her ladder reach? Well, here we go. Here's my triangle. So this is 3. This is my hypotenuse, and it's 24. And we are missing A. We are missing the height. My line's not very straight, but that's okay. So a squared plus 3 squared equals 24 squared. Whoops. So we would solve this. 3 squared is 9. 24 squared was 576. To get a squared by itself, you subtract. 576 minus 9 is 567. The opposite of squaring would be to square root it. And you find the answer. Number 11, the last one. Will ran the diagonal distance across the square field, measuring 40 yards on each side. Here's my square field. It's a 40 by 40. James ran diagonally across a rectangular field. Oh, this is Will. This is James. And his field was 25 by 35. Who ran the longer distance? So we're going to use some room down here. So Will, we have 40 squared plus 40 squared equals c squared. James, we have 25 squared plus 35 squared equals c squared. Let's see. 40 squared plus 40 squared is 30. Oh, I should have wrote it out each out. That's okay. 3,200 equals c squared. 25 squared plus 35 squared, 1850. Who ran longer and how much longer did he run? Okay. So we need to figure out what is this length. So what is the square root of these numbers? And you need to figure this out. Blank ran a longer distance. It was blank yards more. So these will be questions within the game or within the ed puzzle. If you have time after all of this, I will have a GIM kit loaded. Otherwise, don't feel like you have to complete the GIM kit.